Alright, I'm going to continue my commentary of this book right here. And we're going to go through Luke chapter 7. And we have this guy named Simon the Pharisee. Now, how did Simon the Pharisee see Jesus? Now, you have to keep in mind he was probably just a scribe, an understudy of the Pharisees. Okay? Because this guy apparently lived in Galilee, where he was really supposed to have been living in Jerusalem. So that would make him more of a scribe than an actual Pharisee. Alright, so what's the problem? Well, Simon the Pharisee viewed Jesus as a common man. Well, okay, I'll let him into my house, but I'm not going to treat him with dignity. Now, what was Simon the Pharisee supposed to do? Well, he was supposed to give the Christian kiss on the cheek, which that was a Christian thing to do back at that time. And he was supposed to anoint his head with oil, and he was supposed to wash the man's feet. He did none of these things. He wanted people to understand that even though he was letting Jesus in on the conversation, he was going to let him into his house. He certainly was not going to be treated like anything other than a common man. He wasn't anything important. Well, Jesus didn't want to say anything right up front, so he sat down at the table and he reclined in such a way that the legs of Jesus were actually extended behind him. He was probably laying down with his feet behind him. Okay, he was in a very nice reclined position. He was being a part of this meal. Well, there was this lady there, and everybody viewed her as a sinner. Not necessarily because she was a prostitute, because people aren't entirely sure that she really was a prostitute to begin with. More than likely, she just was observing all the customs that were demanded by the Torah and the interpretation by the Pharisees of that Torah. Remember, these customs were being interpreted by the Pharisees. And we already know from my previous video that they had those interpretations incorrect. So, she wasn't observing the Torah the same way as what the Pharisees wanted her to do it. And by doing so, she would just be branded a sinner right off the bat. So what did she do? Well, first of all, she started crying, and her tears hit the feet of Jesus. And she also anointed the head of Jesus with oil. Now, really, she wasn't supposed to do anything like that except with her husband. And she certainly wasn't to touch another man. She was only to touch her husband, nobody else. So, not only having her tears fall at the feet of Jesus was a sin in itself, but also she was wiping the tears away with her hair. That meant she was touching Jesus, which, according to the interpretation of the Torah, she wasn't supposed to do that either. And she was actually talking to Jesus, which technically she wasn't supposed to do that either. So she was just downright doing everything against what the Torah taught, or at least what they interpreted the Torah to teach. Well, did Jesus get mad at her? No. Why? Because she extended him the courtesies that the Pharisee did not, and he was supposed to. So Jesus let her do all this. Well, this ticked off the Pharisee, and he challenged Jesus on the spot. Why are you letting her do all this? You should slap her away. Treat her like the scum that she is. Well, Jesus, upon hearing that, decided, you know what, I ain't going to put up with this. Your interpretation of the Torah is wrong, and I'm going to show you how wrong it is by forgiving her sins immediately. And that's what he did. He honored her because she was doing the very things that that Pharisee was supposed to have been doing. And this, of course, ticked off the Pharisee further. And I'm sure he took this whole report back to Jerusalem to the priests, and that was another reason why they wanted to kill Jesus. He literally discredited a scribe of the Pharisees. That was not kosher. See what I mean? Alright, I will tell you more in my next video. Stay tuned.